The Neroche Scheme was initially very much driven from a wildlife point of view. That's where the Forestry Commission was coming from.
Now they've opened up all the footpaths and the bridleways, you can actually go in there and enjoy it.
In essence, it's about people and it's about landscape.
We've made some massive changes in a very short space of time in this area.
We wanted a way in which we could have a dialogue with the community about some really quite crucial decisions.
The best fit for this area was to restore some of that really valuable habitat and to expand it so that into the future it went forward into a much more valuable and robust habitat that was linked throughout the landscape rather than just in isolated pockets.
One of the first things that, in fact, we did in producing the bid was to set up a local stakeholders group.
They were instrumental in the development of the forest design plan, and as a result we got a much richer, much deeper dialogue and feedback from people.
I found the whole project very interesting because it was the community that had the say in the project. Here it was the foundations of the project were working with the community, and the stakeholders group were that important element.
I've always felt that our views have been respected and valued. I think it was one of the strengths of this project that there was such a strong local stakeholders group.
As the project team started to work in the area and work with the community, because being an HLF bid, it had to have community involvement. It was responsive to what people said, and particularly when practitioners went out into the woods and worked with people, things started to happen, and it became clear that opening up spaces in the forest and bringing people into the forest was going to make a difference.
You just shave bits off them.
And it was really good to see families playing and learning together in a structured and held environment.
My mum can't do it.
There's been a whole series of different events and things have taken place. Sort of openings of things have been quite effective. Probably one of the most standout ones was when we opened up the Here Path. And it started in a field and a farm not far away from here, and all of a sudden all these horse riders left the field and headed off to go around to circumnavigate the Neroche Here Path.
Hare paths were ancient trackways between settlements, and they were quite important trade and communication routes. There were two that passed through the Neroche area, and the modern day interpretation of the word hare path is people's path, which is why the name was adopted for the trails for the Neroche Scheme. The circular route's a 13.5-mile trail centred around Staplefitz which passes the highest point on the Black Downs and pretty much goes down to sea level at places. Passes through Forestry Commission woodlands, through moorland, through open heath. And it's really a fantastic trail that just gets people out into this area that they might not necessarily visit normally.
For me, I've been involved with the Neroche Conservation Volunteers, so some of the things we've achieved within the landscape have been very effective.
We came here back in April. It's lovely to come back today and to look around and see what we achieved. This wonderful open area, which John Davis tells us is absolutely perfect for the butterfly habitat.
See it?
The Neroche volunteers have been doing a marvellous job helping these habitat areas develop into a better condition, really, for the butterflies, and helping control the new growth that's emerging in the clear-felled areas.
Place Street was a deserted medieval village, and we ran a 2-week excavation. It was an absolute phenomenal success. And I've just got, visions of the only 2 weeks that year where it didn't seem to rain that summer, when the sun came out and happy faces in the field, buckets and troweling, and the sounds of happy excavators, which is it was a pleasure looking back down the field and hearing the chattering and the murmuring and the questions and watching people ask questions. It was like, yes, that's what we needed to do. And then the people that came out at lunchtimes and in the morning times for talks, and just seeing people's faces there asking us about what we were doing, you're thinking, yes, this is what we're supposed to do, and yes, this is what you're supposed to do, and this recipe has worked.
I think the Neroche Scheme as a whole has started to tell the story of this place and pull together threads of the story of this place and if you like, weave a new story as well in different ways. So with Punky Night, which for me was an amazing event. It was really hard to put on. And I remember the night here, and there were a lot of people, but that was a new thread that was created as part of the history of here.
Neroche have made it possible for us to take various groups of children for taster sessions and then for longer sessions of forest school. And then with their funding and their help with the training that we're doing as staff, they're going to enable us to then carry that on with the school and embed it fully in our curriculum, so that hopefully every child in the school will end up being able to take part in forest school. And none of that would have been possible without the Neroche input.
It gives those children that don't achieve in the classroom the opportunity to thrive, because they might not be any good with a pencil and paper, but bring them outside and their practical abilities will be able to shine, and that in itself will boost their self-esteem and make it easier for them to achieve in and out of the classroom.
What's been fantastic is that when I came to this project 5 or 6 years ago and with the creative interpretation strategy, I thought that was it. I thought that was the only involvement. It didn't look like there was going to be such an art element to the whole project. And I think what I've loved about this project is the way that it has embraced art. It's like a soup. You've put in all these ingredients and you've stirred it, and out comes something which you just didn't expect. It was much better than you thought it was going to be. We found an old painting in 1971 of what it looked like, and we showed Ted it. He had never seen it. And he was sat there and he was looking at it and he was saying, "Oh, I remember that, that's where we did that. That's where we made the cheese, that's where we did that." Because they used to make butter and cheese here and sell it in Taunton.
Yeah.
I think the important thing about the arts element is to do with it strengthens the interpretation and the legacy of the project. I think, say for instance, on Michael, we got not only involved with, say, the Touching the Seasons, but got very involved with helping out with the art editing and most of the photographs in the Neroche book, which was the publication produced at the end of the project.
And the book just grew and grew and grew.
And it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew. And in many ways that was my fault, because I got so many people involved, and I think we had over 40-odd contributors come the end. I had always wanted it to be something more than your average community history book. I wanted it to convey more than just a very parochial story of a particular area, because I wanted it to be educational.
Suddenly to see it there, it's fantastic. I'm very, very proud of this book, to have been involved. It's a great thing, and it's nice to see the old handwriting. and that is a great image. Such a good book.
I think that that's been one of the joys of this scheme, is that it has brought many different kinds of people together and created a kind of a working melting pot, which has allowed new things to emerge and new practice and new ideas, hopefully. And a lot of those things have been seeded and kind of gone off in their own direction.
I think an important legacy of the Neroche project is that some of the members of the stakeholders group decided to set up the Blackdown Hills Trust. And the idea of that really is it's not only covering the area of the Neroche project, but the whole of the area of outstanding natural beauty on the Blackdown Hills. And it's really carrying on the basic principles that were set up for the Neroche project to look and cherish, conserve the landscape around us. And I think it's important that we carry on that sort of progress towards improvement, and just actually being aware of what we have got and how we can look after it.
It's been a long journey. We've been doing this for 5 years. The emphasis, I think, has changed, though, in the course of the scheme, where while we started off, I suppose, seeing the process as being more of one about physical landscape change with involvement from people, I think by the end of the project we were seeing it much more about people involvement first and foremost as a vehicle for achieving change in the landscape, and the way in which people relate to the forest became much more central to what we were about.
Timber is one part of a whole range of benefits that we believe the public forest estate can provide. Public recreation, biodiversity, timber, landscape improvement. It's a long list, and Neroche is demonstrating how we can deliver all those things in one area. One of the things that you learn with a project like this is that it's not easy to get all the answers. It takes time. With vegetation like this, the questions that you're constantly asking is how many cattle do you need on a site to actually achieve what the objectives that you set? When should they be on? When should they be off? Grazing numbers generally. Managing calves as well as cows presents a whole range of challenges. So where we've got to now, after 5 years, is that we've got clear evidence that the cattle are actually increasing the variety of plants and thereby, and also insects here on the site. So we can see how some of the key food plants are spreading from those special places that we identified right at the beginning into the wider countryside. So that's a great result. As to whether we know exactly how many cows we should put on a site like this and for how long, those are questions which will take more years for us to come up with the ideal solution.
The scheme might be ending, but I mean, it's only the beginning, really. This is going to go on for years now. Now it's been opened up, and it's got to be managed. I mean, basically, the money spent taking out the trees and putting in the paths was just a skeleton, and now we're putting flesh to it. You know, this is going to evolve over a lot of years, and more people will appreciate it, I think.
My big dream is that my grandchildren perhaps will bring their grandchildren here and can still enjoy it, and that the Neroche project, by raising awareness, getting people involved, by improving the access to the place, that, you know, it will mean that this dream can actually happen.